Welcome to the Revenue Marketing Report powered by CaliberMind. I'm your host, Camela Thompson, and today I'm joined by Jeff Loeb. Jeff, I'm so excited to have you here. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Camela. It's great to be here. Gosh, we're going to be talking about ABM today, which is an area that I've been doing a lot of work in for the last few years. Bigger picture, I've been a B2B SaaS CMO for almost 20 years now. So tons of experience with startup companies all the way up to billion-dollar companies, really helping out with growth strategies from targeted strategic account-based marketing approaches to high-velocity, low-friction land and expand models as well.
And I've had the benefit of seeing your ABM strategy, come to fruition. I would love to hear from you. And this is an area we see questions online about a lot, is what exactly is ABM? And then almost more importantly, what isn't it?
Yeah, such a simple question with a complex answer. Let me start with kind of a straight textbook definition, and then we can, shade in some colors from there. The first thing I would say about ABM is that it's a strategic go-to-market approach. And I use the word strategically in the sense that it's not something that you can take lightly. If you really want to do ABM or ABX properly, it has to be a very deliberate, very strategic go-to-market motion. The second thing I'd say about it is that a key feature of it is the orchestration. And orchestration really means the way that the different go-to-market teams work together. So the alignment between sales and marketing and the product team and the customer success team is super critical. And that really, I think, distinguishes really good ABM programs from maybe not so good ABM programs, is the level of orchestration. And the third piece I'd say about it is a level of personalization. It's a very tailored program. And there's different levels of personalization based on whether it's a one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many program, but there's some level of personalization. And the whole purpose is to drive new customer acquisition and expansion to a targeted set of accounts.
Yeah, and you may have seen me wincing just a little bit during the alignment part, because I have joked with friends in the past that account selection with sales is where ABM often goes to die. That may not be fair, but
alignment. If you read any survey that Gartner has done or Forrester has done or anyone has done, over the last 10 years, maybe even 20 years, they talk about the biggest challenges in go-to-market. It's always alignment, right? It's always the sales marketing alignment question. And that really is one of the things that I like about ABM programs, is it really drives a level of alignment, specifically between sales and marketing, that is just so critically important. And it covers all areas, what you mentioned in terms of account selection, but just being close around every stage of the process, what the buying team looks like, what type of content is going to resonate with buyers, how we do the handoffs, what's qualified, what's not, and measurements as well. Just a really awesome way to drive a superior level of alignment.
There's so many places we could go, but I'd really like to stick with the alignment piece because, like you said, we're still talking about it because it's still a big problem. So I've seen you masterfully just work cross-functionally, and I've seen it involve sales in every step of the process. Can you talk a little bit about where you involve them and why?
Sure. And maybe I'll start at the very top and go back to that first point that I made about it being a strategic go-to-market approach, because part of, to me anyhow, what that strategic piece means is that there has to be agreement and we're walking shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip with the executive team, the CEO, the sales team, the marketing team, the customer success team. That level of alignment has to be there. And we have to agree that we're going to put a big investment into this motion. And in order for it to make sense, we have to have kind of the buy-in and the alignment of these teams. So it's kind of built into the process that there's this high level of buy-in. And specifically, it depends a bit on the size of the organization and what have you. But in mid-size organizations, for sure, small to mid-size organizations, there just has to be alignment between the CMO and the CRO that this is important, and we're going to put the necessary kind of resources into it. So it starts off with that alignment at the highest level, and then you have to figure out the team that's going to be involved. I'll bring in another thought here. Because after doing this for a really long time, just in terms of implementing strategic go-to-market programs in general, but then ABM programs specifically, I'm just such a big fan of doing a pilot, getting started very quickly with a pilot. So a big part of the approach that I advocate is let's start with a 3-month pilot period. And what that does is it avoids kind of over-engineering and paralysis, because as you get into it, there's a lot of different components to the program. And man, you can really get wrapped around the axle. So let's start small. Let's take a crawl, walk, run approach. I like to have the program launched and running in less than 3 months. Once you have a shorter time period, it's easier to get engagement with the sales team, with the customer success team.
Those are such great points, because I think it's really important. I've run into situations where sales wants to do ABM, and we talk about what ABM is, and I want to email all of my accounts. Is not usually ABM, or here's a list of 250 accounts that I want to target. So it's always a hard conversation to have. Plus the prospect of narrowing things down to a very narrow thing for a team that is compensated on immediate opportunity closures can be really scary. How have you successfully balanced that? Is there reassurance that we're not going to discontinue some of the larger scope things? What's effective in convincing sales that this is a good idea?
Let's unpack that. That's a big question. So in general, there's a 2-part funnel, right? So for most organizations, now some organizations, there may be 10 accounts that you're going after, right? And your whole business model is to go after these 10 accounts, right? So it's just 100% ABM all the way. But most organizations have a bifurcated strategy where they'll have a named account list, a set of strategic accounts, and it could go anywhere from 50 to 2,000 accounts. And we're going to put an ABM program to go after those accounts. But more often than not, there's also a volume play, right? There's also kind of an inbound component or more traditional motions as well. And typically you want to run these in parallel. So again, every company is a little bit different, but the most typical scenario is that you have kind of both of these streams running. Kind of with respect to, well, what is ABM exactly? What's all the stuff that you have to do, to warrant, the moniker ABM versus just a targeted account program or something? And it's a really interesting question, because a lot of people will make the point and say, gosh, this ABM name is a fancy new name, even though ABM has been around for 20 years, but they'll say, isn't this just like a renaming of this thing we've been doing forever called strategic account marketing? I've been part of teams that have an enterprise team and they go after the top 100 accounts. Isn't this the same? Well, directionally it is. They're in the same family, but it's kind of the level of activity, and it kind of goes back to some of that orchestration and personalization stuff that we talked to. So, another dimension of this puzzle is there's intensity of the ABM program. And you can kind of start with a more traditional strategic account targeted program, right? And over the years, I've softened on this. I was a little bit of a purist maybe in my early days of doing ABM, but I've softened a little bit. And I think of ABM as a range, and there's an ABM light and there's hardcore ABM. That's part of the process as well, is defining kind of how hardcore do we want to be. Doing a program currently with one of my clients at Chief Outsiders, we're doing it's a survey based program. We're working with an outside agency, and we've targeted 150 customers, and our approach to them is, hey, we're doing a study and we'd like you to participate in this study. And that's the way that we've kind of engaged with them. And that's the first part of the program. Once they've engaged with us, it goes kind of into a sales-led motion, right? And I would consider that to be kind of an ABM light type program, right? There isn't a lot of orchestration. It's super, super targeted, but it's a pretty good kind of lightweight way to kind of get into an ABM motion.
So what I'm hearing, so in my mind, the way I separate targeted account campaigns and ABM is the collaboration that's required across departments and the amount of strategic vision that goes into it. So to me, a targeted campaign is really marketing, and then sales will do what they do. To me, ABM is really collaborating on, here are the assets, here's the strategy that marketing's going to be doing, and here's about the time we expect it to go over to sales, and they're going to be proactively doing outbound as well.
Yeah.
So it's a big commitment potentially for depending on, like you said, there's an array. There's light and there's heavy, but even in the light, I hear the potential for sales to be tailoring their approach based on what they're interacting with that survey. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. And if I define my prototypical ABM motion, you start off with that alignment is around our target account. So what's our ICP? What does the buying committee look like? What set of accounts do we want to go after first, et cetera. And then you recognize, unlike inbound, where the beauty of inbound and 10, 15 years ago, the reason that there was so much excitement about it isn't interruption-based marketing, but people find you that are in market and that are interested in your product. And how awesome is that if buyers that are in market are coming to us, right? Pretty cool, right? So that's the positive side of inbound. There's a big negative side, as well, which maybe we can talk a little bit about later. With ABM, you're proactively doing outreach to your target set of accounts. Only a small percentage of those accounts are going to be in market, or not, right? So you have to kind of recognize the types of numbers that are typically thrown around is that, 2 to 3%, of accounts are in market at any point in time. So you're going after accounts that fit your ICP perfectly, but may not be in market. And this is where intent data becomes super important, because if you could help to shape your target account list with intent data, then maybe you can raise those odds, and rather than 2 or 3% being in market, maybe it's 5 or 10 or 20% are in market. But you have to kind of realize that first of all, and then you say, okay, well, these people aren't coming to us as they would in inbound. So how are we going to reach out to them? And, I typically think about these programs as going through different stages, where initially there's an awareness stage where we just want our target accounts to become familiar with them. So we want to surround them with our name and our message, very soft sell, maybe using LinkedIn advertising for targeting and other things like that. Eventually, when we reach out to them, the perfect reaction is, man, I've been seeing you guys everywhere. You guys
Mhm.
must be doing something real. You must be really hot because everywhere I go, I see your name, right? So that's the first stage. And then we move, into this whole series of orchestrated steps where, maybe next, marketing will do some outreach via email. Maybe there'll be some executive level outreach through LinkedIn. And it's moving down from establishing awareness, beginning to plant seeds about, what the value prop is, starting to hit on pain points, and then starting to drive engagement. And we want to do this in this really kind of orchestrated way where the nexus really starts with a lot of marketing motion and moves down to more of a sales motion.
Gosh, I just really like your point about intent because vendors like G2, Trust Radius, Capterra, a lot of times they'll provide you with specific keywords and product families that people are searching for. So to find them already lower down in the funnel, it seems like such a smart thing to get in front of as opposed to trying to push them through. I mean, the awareness, that makes sense, but trying to proactively push them through in a short period of time just seems a little bit less effective.
The thing that you have to recognize, and I always have this conversation very frankly with CEOs and with sales executives, that the beauty of this is awesome. It's zero waste marketing. We're going after, our ICP. Everyone we connect to is going to be a perfect fit. Sales is going to love the leads, right? All that, is wonderful. But they may not have an active purchase cycle. So unlike an inbound lead that, may close in 30 days, 60 days, maybe a few months, many of these opportunities are going to take longer, are going to take
Mhm.
3 months, 6 months, maybe a year to kind of matriculate, right? So you have to go into this eyes wide open that this isn't a quick hit. Okay, we're not going to spin up an ABM program so we can hit our targets by the end of the year, and it's September. Now, this is a strategic program that we're connecting with our very best prospects and engaging them, meeting them where they are, and it may be a longer sales cycle.
It's such a great point, and really emphasizes why it's important to layer on. You can't stop doing everything else and get myopically focused. This has to be integrated in with your other plays. That makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
for
And
sure.
it's
And kind of going back just to pick up on the thread around intent, the more that you can tap into that intent data, the more we can pull things forward. We can find more prospects that are in market or closer to being in market. And then you have to look at the various types of intent data. And it's tricky. There's a lot of vendors out there that have different approaches to intent, some better than others. In some markets, there's more intent data publicly available. So for instance, if you're in an established category where people are actively searching in volume for your type of solution, there's pretty good intent data. But if you're a younger company, maybe creating a new category, there
Mhm.
isn't as much intent data available. So you got to get a little clever. And
Mhm.
one thing that I've learned to appreciate is that there's the third party intent data. So Signal's some third party publication that you can buy data from. But there's also first party intent signals. And these are really signals that are coming from your own website. And
Yes.
it's like, don't forget, right? There are people that are coming to your website. And of course, people that convert, we have a very well-oiled machine to follow up with those with SDRs and nurture programs, et cetera. But the really interesting thing to me is to go after the anonymous folks. So the folks that haven't yet filled out a form, that we don't know who they are. And there's a lot of de-anonymization vendors, out there that will tell you, at least at the company level, who's coming to your website. And those are really valuable signals to feed into an ABM program for target accounts.
Yeah, and I've been in organizations that have all of that configured. Oh, it's just so powerful. And in the tiny companies I work with, I love them, but I do miss the big tech. But this is a perfect segue into our next topic, which is tomorrow we will be speaking about which tactics work pretty well in ABM and which don't, and maybe we'll get a little bit into the data.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Revenue Marketing Report. Please tell 2 friends, subscribe, download, whatever you can helps. And for those of you looking for more great content like this, check out calibervine.com.